And I'm thinking, why are you asking me to change? But it was so fascinating to me because it's exactly what you just said.
Yes.
You can't disconnect the two. And going on that, you said focus and mood about your father.
Yes.
You have a whole section in here dedicated to focus and mood.
Yes.
Walk us through that, because what you just explained to us is the emotional focus and mood
Yes.
of your father.
Yes.
But here you're talking about how the physicality of focus and mood can affect us.
They go together.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of how powerful they are for the psychological side. Right now, out of COVID, so many people have been shut down in a terrible place. And I'm sure you've seen that drug overdoses are the largest they've ever been in history. It was over 100,000 people last year. Suicides, 1 out of 4 kids under the age of 30, according to the CDC, whether they're accurate or not, I don't know, have considered suicide sometime in the last 2 years. Because we all need a compelling future. We need something to look forward to. So Stanford came to me, and their genetics lab has been doing research on depression. And what they found was that by doing meta-studies, is only 40% of the people who go in for therapy, who they get drugs and therapy together usually, only 40% make any improvement. 60% don't improve at all. That's not a lot more than what you can get on some placebos. Mm-hmm. And so they approached me and said, a couple of people went through one of your programs. One was clinically depressed, they're not anymore, but we don't have any science on this. Would you be willing to let us do a science test? And I said, sure. So they came out to the State with Destiny seminar I do, which helps people to change their values and belief structures. I don't tell them what they need to be, they figure out what it needs to be. And it changes the way you perceive life, the way you experience life, how you feel, what you do. It's a rewiring of your model of the world, basically, in 6 days. And so they said, we're gonna model this after the greatest breakthrough they found in science and no one able to follow up on. About 2 years ago, Johns Hopkins did a study on depression. And they gave people psilocybin, right, which comes from magic mushrooms. And they did therapy for 30 days. And at the end of it, 53% of the people were depression-free 30 days later. Never happened. Like when we say 40% are helped, the average amount of help is 50% less depressed, right? That's what the average is. Some people completely turn around, some people don't. In this one, 53% of the people. So it's 4 times the result of any drug that ever been done. But unfortunately, psilocybin's not legal, so they're still working on that. And they said, we're gonna copy that exact study. And we're gonna have a group that they compared to, which didn't go to the seminar. The comparison group is gonna do gratitude journaling and so forth, because positive psychology talks about that. And they said that's probably what this seminar does, is just positive thinking. Well, the cool thing was when they came out, the results were so amazing at Stanford that they went and had 2 new additional double-blind people do the research, because it just seemed so ridiculous. At the end of the first week, 63% of people had no depression symptoms. At the end of 6 weeks, it can increase through time. 100% of the people had no depression symptoms. 19% of the people had suicidal ideation. 0 had suicidal ideation. It blows away any study. It just came out. It's coming out next week in the Psychiatric Journal, which is Journal of American Medical Association, Psychiatric Journal are the 2 top journals in the field. They can't even believe it, so they're going to do more. And the actual scientific article says this is more powerful than any drug therapy or any forms of normal therapy combined. And what are we doing? We're getting people to change basically those 3 questions to some extent, because your values control what you focus on. If you're security driven and you're here down in my basement right now, you're like, where's the exit, right? You came down a slide, like, how do I get out of here, right? If you're adventure driven, you don't care. You don't even know where it is. So your focus is controlled by your values and your belief systems, right? The meaning of things is controlled by your belief systems. So those 3 decision-making things, what I'm gonna focus on, what does it mean, what I'm gonna do, shift. And one good example of this, Jay, is, and maybe your audience can relate to this, is if we just took 3 patterns. So let's say focus, most people have a focus either on what they have or what's missing. Mm-hmm. We all do both. Mm-hmm. But what do you think most people focus on more often? What they have or what's missing?
What's missing.
That's right. Now, even achievers do that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like somebody who's not successful. It's one of the reasons you see these achievers that no matter what they do, it's never enough. Just think about it, if you're always focusing what's missing from your life, how can you sustain happiness? Mm-hmm. It's software that will not allow that. You'll feel happy for a little moment and then you'll notice it's missing again. What do you think's more often people focus on, what they can control or can't control?
What they can't control.
Yeah. In my seminars, it's can control. That's why they go. I want to learn how to take control of my body or my finances or my business, whatever it is. So it's the opposite. But the average person, it's what they can't control. And with COVID, there's so much you can't control around you that people really sunk in that. Well, how's someone going to feel? Just everyone think about it. If you're constantly focused on what's missing from your life and what you can't control. And then I'll add one more. do you focus more on the past, the present, or the future? We all do all three, but we tend to have one we focus more on. Where do you think more people focus?
Past.
That's right. And achievers focus on the future, and happy people on the present. So that, you know, if you're going to be an achiever, the ideal is the present, so you experience it, anticipating the future, so you can shape your life, right?
Yeah.
But the past you can't change. So I ask people in seminars, you got stadium 15, 20,000 people, and I'll say, how many of you know somebody that takes antidepressants and they're still depressed? And 80% of the room raise their hand saying they know somebody.
Wow.
Well, how come? Because all antidepressants do is numb you so that you're less intense, but they don't deal with the source of the problem, which is you're constantly seeing what's missing. And it doesn't matter whether you're successful or not. That's why there are these people that have been wealthy and think their own life. They see what's missing, they focus on all the things they can't control. There's plenty we can't control, but there's plenty we can influence and plenty we can't control. And just a couple of changes like that completely change someone's life. And so those changes in the beliefs and values change what they look moment to moment, change their experience of life. They're no longer depressed.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I learned from that, apart from all the incredible stuff you said, is I didn't think about security once when we came down the slide. That's either because I trust you a lot, and I'm with you. If it was someone else telling me to get down the slide, I don't know if I would have done it. But now I'm like going, oh, wait a minute, we're underwater. now I'm starting to have all the thoughts.
That's right.
That's incredible. Those questions are fascinating to me. And you were saying that the people that come to your seminars are people that are the opposite. And I think the same of the people that listen to this podcast.
Sure.
They're choosing to listen to this podcast
because they want to take charge.
Over just watching a show or binge watching another series. They're here trying to take charge of that.
That's right.
What kind of assurance can you give them that that mindset is one that they should keep watering? Because I feel that often, and you've probably heard this in your seminars time and time again, people are like, Tony, I'm trying, I read the book, I'm trying to put it into practice, but I still keep failing or I still keep struggling. Someone who's already on, but feels that failure, that rejection, that pushback, what can keep them going?
I think it's understanding there's no replacement for persistence, as simplistic as that is. It's like, you know, disappointment either destroys you or drives you, and you have to decide which one it's going to be. If you don't consciously decide, there's always going to be more BS for you to deal with. And I think, but that's why I think, you know, when I do my events, the reason I do the 12 hours a day, it's not because I like talking. It's just that I can tell you something all day long, or I can get you to build the muscle.
Yes.
And the build of the muscle is by experiencing. And I always tell people a belief's a poor substitute for an experience. Like I could have a belief about you, but now I experience you. So I get to know who you are, right? The same thing's true as like you have a belief about China, you have a belief about working out. So I try to give people experiences that are so profound. And then, you know, the studies they did, they found people 12 months later, 11 months later, we're still in the middle of COVID. They did my digital seminar, and you know, they measured my body, like the amount of times I jump 1,000 times in a day, and I weigh 282 pounds, and I come down 4 times the body weight, so it's 1,000 pounds times 1,000 pounds of pressure. My lactic acid, if you've ever been with a friend and you're running and you can't talk, the point you can't talk is a level 4 of lactic acid. I'm at an 18 and still speaking. So they decided to do that on my audience. And they found an interesting pattern. This is the same group that works with some of the, you know, Super Bowl champions and some of the Stanley Cup champions and so forth. There's a ratio in the body of testosterone versus cortisol, the stress hormone. And when the ratio is balanced, they call it the championship bloodline or bloodstream. It literally gets you to follow through. So when they did my audience in my live seminar, they found that people literally mirror me all the way through the experience.
That's phenomenal.
Biochemically.
That is phenomenal.
But then we did it, you know, because all of a sudden, overnight they said to me, you know, we're going to San Francisco, and the governor of California says you can only have 10 people, and we have 15,000. So I was like, we'll go to Vegas. They'll never shut down Vegas. They shut down Vegas. I was like, okay, we'll do 1,500 movie theaters with 10 people in them. They shut down the movie theaters. Like, okay, we'll go to a church in Houston. I got a buddy, I'll rent his church for 15,000 people. They're not gonna keep Costco open and shut down the church. They kept Costco open and shut down the church. So I finally said, okay, I'm not gonna do some crappy little webinar. So I get this vision. I'm gonna build this facility with 20-foot high LED screens, 50 feet wide all around me. I'm gonna call Eric Yon at Zoom. I'm gonna get them from 1,000 up to 25,000 people so I can interact with people live in real time. I'm gonna build an app so they can shake it. And the more people do it, the louder it gets, so it's real. So I built this whole thing. So now we're doing bigger events than ever in our entire history. But they did the same measurements on them in different parts of the world and saw the exact same mirroring process.
Wow.
And the average person—
Even digitally, just to clarify that,
71% of the people, they had a 71% drop in negative emotions, 53% improvement in positive emotions, and 11 months later, In the middle of COVID, it held because it's a biochemical change. So when people say, oh, I'm trying, I write books because it's an easy entry point to people. There's so much you can learn from a book, but there's nothing like the experience. That's why I do the events. And like these last 2 years, because of COVID, I did 2 like 6-day free events. We had 800,000 people attend for 6 days just 4 weeks ago, because I just wanted people to have answers where they are. And then people start to see, they get momentum. But it's hard to do just reading something or watching a couple of 20-minute or 15-minute or 5-minute little pieces on YouTube. Those are great, they might inspire you. But a transformation requires immersion. It's like, if you ask the average person, did you study a foreign language in school? Most people, oh yeah, high school, college, speak it. They don't. But if you turn around and you said, okay, what if you want to learn Italian and I just took you to Rome and dumped you off for 6 weeks with no teacher, you're going to come back 6 weeks later speaking, Italian. So it's immersion. And if you want to master something, I think that's the thing most people don't do. They read a little bit, they listen a little bit, they dip in and out. They don't go day and night, night and day in total immersion in something that transforms them, and also something that makes them push through their fears. Because in the end, that's the only thing that stops me. Everybody's got a story. I didn't know this person. I don't have the resources. They have all the things they don't have. But if you're resourceful, you can get the money, you can get the time, you can get the energy, you can get anything you want. And you've got to get over your fear to be resourceful. So we do experiences that are so physiologically profound that those fears do not stop you anymore. And that's how we get people to get, 10 years later, they're still transformed from an experience that was one weekend.
The fact that people are mirroring you, that is,
you should see it on a
through
curve.
A screen, that is mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing.
And that through a screen too. That blew my mind even more.
But you know what's really cool about the screens is, like, if you're in my seminar, you're in a giant stadium, and I'm a dot. Most people watching me on a screen anyway, right? Unless you're in the front rows. But I can see your eyes, I can feel what's going on. I'm running around the building. Here, I can scan so many people, and I see them in their home. I see them with their children. I see the interaction with their husband or their wife. I see what they're eating. And I'm with them 12, 13 hours a day for 3 or 4 days. And we start here, for example, at 10 a.m., and we're in 195 countries. So we got one for 25,000 people, March 17th to the 20th here. And we will have people in Australia starting at midnight and going till 1 in the afternoon the next day for 4 days. And people in Italy are doing it at a different time. So it's like, we literally have the whole world engaged. So that's been the blessing of COVID. It's like I always tell people, you use stress or stress uses you, right? I had to figure out how to use COVID, and I wanted to serve people, and we found the way. But again, none of this happens if you don't have enough energy. Because your brain will just go, oh man, I've tried everything.
You walk yourself out of it. And I love, the thing I love about immersion in events or retreats is that you actually build friendships.
That's right.
The community that's
built. The community for sure.
The community of that accountability of we're doing this together, we're growing together, we're building together, that there are people who think like me and look like me.